Ever considered the super realistic possibility of a spine-tingling parasite that feeds on fear? Ready for a shockingly suspenseful classic? Step into The Tingler, where screams are music to its ears. Can you handle the spine-chilling sensation of terror on the loose?
The Tingler is a 1959 American horror film directed by William Castle, known for his gimmicky promotional techniques and his creative use of audience participation in his films. The film centers around the concept of a parasitic creature called the Tingler, which feeds on fear. When a doctor, played by Vincent Price, discovers that fear can physically manifest in the form of this creature, he becomes obsessed with studying it. The Tingler's existence leads to a series of terrifying events. The Tingler is famous for its gimmick called Percepto. During certain scenes, Castle rigged some of the seats in the theater with vibrating devices that would buzz, simulating the sensation of the Tingler breaking loose in the theater. This interactive element added an extra layer of excitement for the audiences. The Tingler is remembered for its unique combination of horror and audience interaction, and it remains a notable entry in the history of horror cinema.
Alright, so this is one of those movies that I really have to admit I only know about because I took a horror film class as one of my final college courses. So this movie was really cool to watch decades after it had initially premiered, but I secretly wish that I could have experienced basically the invention of 4D, because that's basically what it is. So in the early 2000s, when my sister and I would go see movies sometimes, they would offer this feature called 4D. All 4D really meant was the seats would vibrate and there'd be something that like poked us in the back during the movie. The initial theater experience of The Tingler seems a lot like that, but of course it was brand new, it was innovative, and it was scary. Alright, so there are so many scenes I could talk about in this movie, but I think I will narrow it down just to two. Alright, so the first scene I'll talk about is when the doctor, played by Vincent Price, he so desperately wants to study the Tingler, but he can't get scared. So he's trying to use himself as sort of the test subject and trying to scare himself enough to extract the Tingler. Now keep in mind, the one thing that hinders the Tingler is the sound of a scream, okay? That's how you keep it at bay. So let's set the scene in fair mad scientist's laboratory. Now the doctor decides to administer LSD straight into the bloodstream, okay? So he figures this psychedelic experience can really help him attain this feeling of terror. So he locks himself in his laboratory, and as the audience, we're basically like flies on the wall. And slowly but surely, he starts to perceive the walls of the laboratory basically closing in on him, suffocating him. And he knows he's getting to that point where he's getting so scared that he might actually scream, which of course would be detrimental to this experiment. So he's freaking out in the corner and he's like, mustn't scream, mustn't scream. And of course then he screams, completely ruining his experiment and sending him back to the old drawing board. Later on he asks, did I just freak out and scream? Okay, so the other scene I'll talk about also involves LSD right into the bloodstream. This is the scene where the doctor administers LSD into Martha's arm. Martha's completely trusting of him because why would the doctor lead her astray? And then Martha begins to hallucinate that her bathtub and her sink is full of blood. Maybe not blood per se, but essentially red water. I will point out though, this effect is so cool. So the rest of the movie is completely in black and white. It's from 1959, right? But in this scene where Martha's freaking out and she hallucinates this bloody bathroom scene, there's actual red in the scene. It's incredibly eye-catching. It's just this beautiful color pop. I know it's morbid, but it's beautiful in a lot of ways. So initially I thought that perhaps they technicolored this scene, but when I really looked closely and examined it, it didn't really have a lot of the same qualities that Technicolor might have. I feel like sometimes Technicolor can look very pastel and fake. I don't know how else to describe it. After a little bit of research, it seems as if they just used color film. So 1959, they had color film. The more you know. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please like the video, subscribe, comment below. I love hearing from you, and I'll see you tomorrow.